Today, we're diving into a story about one of the biggest geopolitical bargains of the 20th century, a trade that literally redrew the map of Asia. It stars two absolute heavyweights, Stalin and Mao, and centers on a single decision that, honestly, we still feel the effects of today. We're talking about the Sinkiang question.
And this is the core mystery we're going to unravel. I mean, think about it. Why would a superpower just give away a massive strategic region that it completely controlled? On the surface, it looks like a major defeat, a sign of weakness. But the real story is so much more complicated and, frankly, so much more strategic than that.
So first, let's just appreciate what was at stake here. Xinjiang, what we now call Xinjiang, was never just some remote patch of dirt. No way. This place is loaded with oil, minerals, and farmland. It's the historic crossroads of Asia. And just look at a map. It shares a border with Russia, Mongolia, Pakistan, India, you name it. For any empire, controlling Xinjiang is like hitting the geopolitical jackpot.
So how did the Soviets get their hooks into this place so deeply in the first place? Well, our story really kicks off in the early 20th century, back when Sinkiang was basically operating as its own independent kingdom.
You have to remember, China's central government in the 1930s was in total chaos. They were fighting a civil war and the Japanese invasion. They had zero real control over this faraway western province. This created this massive power vacuum, and as we all know, geopolitics hates a vacuum. Someone was bound to step in.
And that someone was Joseph Stalin. A local warlord named Chiang Kai grabs power, but he knows he can't hold it alone. So he looks north to his powerful neighbor for help. He basically invites the Soviets in, and for the better part of a decade, Moscow is running the show. They controlled the economy, the trade. Xinjiang was, for all intents and purposes, a Soviet puppet state.
But of course, this cozy little arrangement wasn't going to last. This is where the story gets really interesting, full of backstabbing, rebellion, and a moment that forced Stalin to completely change his game plan.
And this right here shows you just how pragmatic and ruthless Stalin's strategy was. When the first independent republic was declared in 1933, he saw it as a threat. He was worried it would inspire Muslims inside the USSR to rebel, so he helped his puppet crush it. But a decade later, when a second republic pops up, he sponsors it. He gives them weapons and training. So what changed? Why the complete 180?
Well, here's the plot twist. Chiang Kai, the Soviets guy on the ground, decided to switch teams. He stabbed Stalin in the back, kicked the Soviets out, and aligned himself with their rivals, the Chinese nationalists. Stalin was, to put it mildly, furious. And that betrayal is exactly why he backed that Second Republic in 1944. It was pure payback, a tool to punish Chiang and take back control.
Which brings us right back to our big puzzle. Moscow had just engineered a successful rebellion. They had their pro-Soviet state. They had won. So why in the world, just 5 years later, did they turn around and let the whole thing collapse?
Well, the answer isn't found in Xinjiang at all. The answer lies in a single, massive event happening thousands of miles away, an event that would change the entire strategic map of the world.
The year is 1949, and everything changes. Mao Zedong and the Communist Party win the Chinese Civil War. All of a sudden, Stalin's neighbor isn't a weak, fractured mess anymore. It's a brand new, absolutely massive, ideologically aligned communist superpower. And for Stalin, this changed the entire calculation.
So Stalin found himself facing a huge strategic choice. Option 1, he could keep propping up his little separatist state in Xinjiang, but that would weaken and anger the new communist China from day one. Or option 2, he could sacrifice his direct control over Xinjiang and in return gain a powerful, united China as a major ally against the West.
Stalin chose option 2. But let's be crystal clear. This wasn't a surrender. It wasn't a withdrawal. It was a cold, calculated trade. So let's break down the 5 key factors that went into his decision.
So here was Stalin's thinking. 1, a strong allied China was a much bigger prize than a tiny client state. That's just simple math. 2, he still didn't like the idea of an independent Muslim state on his border that could inspire his own people to rebel. 3, he knew he could just make a deal with Mao to get Sinkiang's oil and minerals anyway. 4, a friendly, stable China was a much better buffer against American influence. And 5, after the horrors of World War II, the last thing he wanted was another war. When you see it all laid out, the choice he made seems almost inevitable.
So, the decision was made.
But the way it was carried out, well, that's where the story takes its final, chilling, and mysterious turn.
In August of 1949, the entire leadership of that pro-Soviet republic, they all board a plane. They're flying to Beijing to meet Mao and work out the final details of joining the new China. The plane took off, and then it was gone. It never landed. And here's the question that historians still argue about. The plane crashed over Soviet territory. Every single leader on board died. Was it a tragic accident? Or was it an incredibly convenient way to eliminate any leaders who might object to Stalin's new plan? We'll probably never know for sure.
What we do know is that with the entire leadership suddenly gone, the remaining officials, almost certainly with a firm nudge from Moscow, quickly agreed to fold. Mao's army simply marched into Sinkiang. Not a shot was fired. The deal was done.
And this really is the heart of the whole story. The Soviet Union didn't give up Xinjiang. It wasn't a loss. It was a trade. It's like a chess game. They gave up a pawn, direct control of a region, to gain what they thought was a queen, a full-blown strategic alliance with the nation of China.
And for a short time, the trade actually worked. During the 1950s, the Soviets and Chinese worked together to build up Sinkiang's industry. But that grand communist alliance, it was doomed. By the 1960s, it completely fell apart, and the two countries became bitter rivals. That once friendly border, it became a heavily armed front line in the Cold War.
So in the end, Stalin's decision was a massive geopolitical gamble. He bet on the future value of a powerful ally over the current value of direct control. It was a decision made from a place of cold, strategic calculation, not weakness.
Stalin made his trade to lock in a partner for the future, but his calculations couldn't account for one huge variable. And it leaves us with a lingering question. What happens when the powerful ally you sacrificed so much to win over eventually becomes your greatest rival?